G'day mate, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most questionable periods in Australian automotive history. We're talking about the cars that made Australians scratch their heads and wonder what engineers were actually thinking. These weren't just bad cars, they were absolute disasters that combined poor engineering, questionable design choices, and terrible timing into nightmares on wheels. So if you love automotive failures as much as we do, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because today we're counting down the top 13 worst Australian cars of 1965. Let's get started. Number 13, Holden Fay, the underpowered family sedan, coming in at number 13. We have the Holden Fay, Australia's answer to affordable family transportation. Motors Holden launched this vehicle with the promise of reliable, economical transportation. The FA came standard with a 2.25-liter inline-six engine producing just 74 horsepower in a car that weighed nearly 2,600 pounds. Getting from 0 to 60 took an agonizing 18 seconds, making merging onto newly built interstate highways a nerve-wracking experience. The optional 2.9-liter V8 produced 115 horsepower, but at $400 extra, it was out of reach for most families. Inside, the Holden Fay was a lesson in minimalism taken too far. Hard plastic dashboard, uncomfortable bench seats, and virtually no sound insulation made highway drives exhausting. Interior panels were thin and flimsy, rattling constantly. Within a few years, interior trim began coming loose. Fuel economy was terrible despite low horsepower, with most drivers reporting around 14 miles per gallon in city driving. Number 12. Leyland P76, the ambitious failure at number 12. We have the Leyland P76, one of the most controversial Australian cars ever built. British Leyland Motor Corporation entered the Australian market with enormous ambition, planning to revolutionize family transportation. The Leyland P76 was massive, over 15 feet long, with a boxy design supposed to maximize interior space. Under the hood sat a 3.5-liter V8 engine, producing 155 horsepower paired with a 3-speed automatic transmission. The build quality was absolutely abysmal. Paint began peeling within months. Panel gaps were inconsistent throughout the car. Electrical systems failed constantly, with mysterious gremlins plaguing owners. Dashboard lights flickered unpredictably. Windshield wipers stopped working for no reason. Rust appeared within the first year, particularly around wheel wells and door bottoms. Despite enormous marketing campaigns, Australian buyers quickly became aware of the P76's massive problems, and by 1967, it was quietly withdrawn from the market. Number 11, Maurice Oxford, the British mistake at number 11. We have the Maurice Oxford, another British Leyland product attempting to dominate the Australian market. The Maurice Oxford was marketed as a sophisticated British sedan that would appeal to Australians desiring something more refined than the utilitarian Holden Fay. The Maurice Oxford came with a 1.5-liter inline-four engine, producing a meager 54 horsepower, making the car practically useless for Australian highway conditions. Acceleration from 0 to 60 took nearly 22 seconds, almost half a minute of agonizing acceleration. Overtaking on two-lane highways was practically impossible. The 3-speed manual transmission and 2-speed automatic were equally underpowered and painfully slow. The build quality was terrible, with rust developing within the first year, spreading rapidly across the bodywork. The interior featured cheap vinyl seats that tore easily and cracked rapidly under Australia's harsh sun. The electrical system was British Leyland's characteristic Nightmare Lucas electronics, nicknamed the Prince of Darkness by frustrated owners. Number 10. Humber Sceptre. Luxury that wasn't number 10 brings us the Humber Sceptre. Yet another British Leyland product attempting to compete in the luxury segment. The Humber Sceptre was supposedly a luxury sedan, appealing to wealthy Australians seeking British sophistication. What they got instead was an underpowered disappointment, costing far too much money. The Humber Sceptre featured a 1.6-liter inline-four engine, producing just 62 horsepower, completely inadequate for a car marketed as luxury. The car weighed approximately 2,900 pounds, meaning the underpowered engine constantly struggled. 0 to 60 took over 20 seconds, making the Sceptre slower than many taxis. The exterior styling was supposed to convey luxury, but execution was bland and uninspired. Body panels were thin and flimsy, beginning to rust within months. The interior featured cheap plastic trim and thin vinyl seats that tore easily. Build quality was atrocious, with visible panel gaps and misaligned body panels. Number 9. Sunbeam Rapier, performance that wasn't at number 9. We have the Sunbeam Rapier, a British sports car, promising exciting performance but delivering disappointment and reliability nightmares. The Sunbeam Rapier was positioned as an affordable sports car, appealing to Australian drivers wanting excitement. Without breaking the bank, instead, it became a symbol of false promises and poor engineering. The Sunbeam Rapier came with a 1.6-liter inline-four engine producing 93 horsepower. While reasonable sounding, the car weighed nearly 2,500 pounds, leaving little margin for exciting performance. Acceleration from 0 to 60 took approximately 13 seconds, and the top speed was barely 110 miles per hour. Whelming for a car marketed as sporty. The problems began immediately with the electrical system, powered by Lucas Electronics, proving utterly unreliable. The car would sometimes refuse to start even in ideal conditions. Headlights dimmed to near uselessness on dark nights. Rust developed rapidly, particularly in the engine bay, where salt air corroded metal components. Number 8. Standard Vanguard. The outdated pretender number 8 is the Standard Vanguard, an aging design that Standard Triumph attempted to continue selling in the Australian market despite being hopelessly outdated. The Standard Vanguard had been in production since the 1950s, and by 1965 it was a relic from a bygone era. The Standard Vanguard featured a 2.0-liter inline-four engine producing just 68 horsepower paired with a 3-speed manual transmission. This ancient powertrain was completely inadequate for modern highway driving. 0 to 60 took over 20 seconds, and the top speed was barely 95 miles per hour, making this supposedly family sedan slower than many motorcycles available at the time. The styling was boxy and outdated, looking like something from the 1950s despite being marketed as a 1960s model. The interior was Spartan and uncomfortable, with bench seats and hard plastic trim. Build quality was atrocious, with rust appearing within the first year and spreading rapidly through the bodywork. Number 7. Riley 1.5 Confused Engineering. Number 7. We have the Riley 1.5, a British Leyland product attempting to be both a family car and a performance vehicle, but succeeding at neither. Riley 1.5 was positioned as an upmarket version of the Morris Oxford, featuring sportier styling and supposedly better engineering. In reality, it was confused design thinking that satisfied nobody. Riley 1.5 featured a 1.5-liter inline-four engine producing 68 horsepower, paired with either a 4-speed manual or a 3-speed automatic transmission. 0 to 60 took approximately 15 seconds, and top speed was around 105 miles per hour. The styling attempted to convey sportiness with a distinctive front grille, but overall, execution was uninspired and ugly. Australian buyers thought it looked awkward compared to the clean lines of the Holden Fay or emerging Japanese designs. Quality was typical British Leyland, absolutely dreadful, with rust appearing within months. Number 6. Vauxhall Victor. Power without reliability. Number 6 brings us the Vauxhall Victor, a General Motors product attempting to capitalize on Australian market conditions, but delivering a vehicle suffering from catastrophic reliability problems. The Vauxhall Victor came with a 1.5-liter inline-four engine, producing 76 horsepower paired with a 3-speed manual or automatic transmission. While respectable power output for the era, the engine suffered from numerous design flaws, making it notoriously unreliable. The carburetor frequently became misadjusted, causing rough idle and stalling at traffic lights. Spark plugs fouled regularly, necessitating frequent replacements. The electrical system was a nightmare, with the alternator failing without warning, leaving drivers stranded on Australian highways far from help. The starter motor jammed on cold mornings, requiring multiple attempts to start the car. Dashboard lights illuminated unpredictably, and the fuel gauge read incorrectly. Rust developed within the first year, spreading rapidly through the bodywork. Number 5. Wolseley 1500 Confusion in design. At number 5, we have the Wolseley 1500, another British Leyland product attempting to occupy the luxury segment but delivering pretension without substance. The Wolseley 1500 was supposedly a luxury family sedan, but was actually a Morris Oxford with a fancy front grille and luxury trim, hiding fundamental inadequacies. The Wolseley 1500 featured a 1.5-liter inline-four engine producing 54 horsepower, the same meager output as the Morris Oxford. Acceleration was pathetically slow, with 0 to 60 taking nearly 22 seconds. The top speed was barely 98 miles per hour, making this supposedly luxury vehicle slower than many basic family cars from other manufacturers. The exterior styling attempted to convey luxury, but looked old-fashioned and out of place compared to modern designs arriving from Japan. Build quality was absolutely terrible, with paint peeling within months, and body panels rusting through within the first year in coastal areas. Number 4. Austin Cambridge. Dated design number 4 is the Austin Cambridge, another British Leyland product representing everything wrong with British automotive engineering applied to Australian market conditions. The Austin Cambridge had been in production since the 1950s, and by 1965, it was hopelessly outdated compared to modern designs arriving from Japan and America. The Austin Cambridge featured a 1.5-liter inline-4 engine producing 68 horsepower, paired with a 3-speed manual or 2-speed automatic transmission. Power output was inadequate for Australian highway conditions. 0 to 60 took over 18 seconds, and top speed was barely 100 miles per hour. The styling was boxy and outdated, looking like a design from the early 1950s, despite being marketed as a 1960s vehicle. Interior featured basic vinyl upholstery and hard plastic trim looking cheap and feeling cheap. Number 3. Van den Plas Princess, false luxury. Number 3, we have the Van den Plas Princess, a heavily modified Austin Cambridge attempting to position itself as luxury through added trim and pretentious styling. Van den Plas name was supposed to convey ultra-luxury and British prestige. But Australian buyers discovered that gold trim couldn't fix poor engineering. The Van den Plas Princess featured the same 1.5-liter inline-4 engine as the Austin Cambridge, producing just 68 horsepower. The car weighed approximately 2,700 pounds due to additional luxury appointments, making it even slower. 0 to 60 took over 20 seconds, practically unusable for modern traffic. Top speed was barely 98 miles per hour. Build quality was dreadful, with rust appearing within months and panel gaps visible and inconsistent throughout the vehicle. Number 2. Triumph 2000. Reliability nightmare, our runner-up at number 2, is the Triumph 2000. A relatively modern design, promising excellent performance and reliability, but delivering heartbreak to Australian owners. The Triumph 2000 was actually one of the better designs from British Leyland, but catastrophic quality control problems turned it into a nightmare. The Triumph 2000 featured a 2.0-liter inline-4 engine producing 100 horsepower paired with either a 4-speed manual or 3-speed automatic transmission. On paper, this looked promising with decent power for a 2,500-pound vehicle. Acceleration from 0 to 60 took approximately 11 seconds, and top speed was around 120 miles per hour. For 1965, this represented solid performance. The styling was modern and attractive, featuring clean lines that looked fresh. But then the problems began. The electrical system was a complete nightmare, with complex Lucas components failing constantly. The alternator failed without warning, leaving drivers stranded on the road. Number 1. Hillman Superminx, the worst of them all. And finally, the worst Australian car of 1965 is the Hillman Superminx. This British Leyland product represents everything wrong with British automotive engineering and poor planning. The Hillman Superminx arrived in Australia with enormous expectations and marketing hype, promising Australian drivers a sophisticated European sedan that would revolutionize family transportation. Instead, it became the most infamous automotive failure in Australian history. The Hillman Superminx featured a 1.6-liter inline-4 engine producing 79 horsepower, paired with a 3-speed manual or automatic transmission. While slightly better than competing British designs, overall engineering was fundamentally flawed. The car weighed approximately 2,600 pounds, with the underpowered engine struggling. 0 to 60 took over 15 seconds, and top speed was barely 110 miles per hour. The real disaster was build quality and reliability. Rust appeared within months of purchase, spreading rapidly through the bodywork. Within the first year, owners reported rust holes compromising structural integrity. The electrical system was absolutely catastrophic, with Lucas's components failing with stunning regularity. Cars refused to start for no apparent reason. Headlights dimmed to near uselessness. The carburetor fouled frequently, causing stalling at traffic lights. Most catastrophically, internal documents later revealed that British Leyland was aware of these problems before the car arrived in Australia, but management decided to proceed anyway. This corporate negligence transformed the Hillman Superminx into a symbol of corporate arrogance. Sales plummeted within 18 months, and British Leyland was forced to withdraw the model from the Australian market.